The bank manager didn't sound alarmed. He sounded careful. "Mr. Hale, I just need to confirm something," he said. "Was the transfer to the offshore account authorized by you?" I was sitting in my car outside a grocery store. Offshore account. Transfer. Authorized. "No," I said. There was a pause on the line. "That's what I thought," he replied quietly. That was the moment I realized my wife hadn't just moved money. She had assumed I wouldn't notice. And she was almost right. Stay with me, because what looked like financial betrayal at first turned into something far more complicated. And the call from the bank wasn't the only call that week. I didn't go home immediately. I stayed in the car, staring at the steering wheel. The bank manager, Colin Mercer, had been with the branch for over a decade. He wasn't dramatic. If he was calling, it meant something didn't sit right. "What exactly was transferred?" I asked. $280,000, he said evenly, "from your joint investment account." Joint. The word felt heavier than the amount. Where did it go? A holding account in the Cayman Islands. The paperwork was submitted electronically under your wife's credentials. My wife, Andrea. We had been married 12 years, shared accounts, shared decisions, or so I believed. "Why call me?" I asked. "There was a timing inconsistency," he said. "The signature authorization was updated yesterday, but the device ID used to submit the transfer didn't match her usual login pattern." I absorbed that slowly. "You think it wasn't her?" "I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's irregular." Irregular. Not illegal, not fraud, just irregular. "Can you freeze it?" I asked. "It's pending review for 24 hours because of the international routing. That's why I called." There was no accusation in his tone, just procedure. I ended the call and drove home. Andrea was in the kitchen when I walked in, laptop open, glass of sparkling water beside her. She looked up and smiled, casual. "You're early." "We need to talk," I said. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Not fear, assessment. "About the transfer." There it was, a flicker, small, fast. "What transfer?" she asked. "The Cayman account." She didn't freeze, she didn't stutter. She closed her laptop slowly. "I was going to tell you." "That's not what I asked." She leaned against the counter. "It's an investment vehicle, temporary, tax efficient." $280,000 is not temporary. "It's structured capital," she replied calmly. Structured. The language irritated me more than the action. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "Because you overanalyze risk." That landed cleanly. "I overanalyze risk," I repeated. "Yes, and sometimes you hesitate long enough to miss opportunity." Her tone wasn't cruel. It was measured. "I didn't hesitate on this because I didn't know about it." She crossed her arms. "You would have said no." "I don't know that." "I do." Silence filled the space between us. Not explosive, calculated. "I built that investment account," I said quietly. "And I've supported your career for 12 years, she replied just as quietly. There it was. Not about money, about leverage. "You think this is compensation?" I asked. "I think this is strategic." I stepped closer. "Colin called me." That changed something. Her posture stiffened slightly. "Why would he call you?" "Because the device signature didn't match." Now her eyes shifted. Not guilt, annoyance. "I used my tablet instead of my laptop." "That's not what he meant." She held my gaze. "You don't trust me." The phrase echoed too easily. Trust. I tried to sort through what I was feeling. Anger? Yes, but underneath it was something else. displacement, as if I had been quietly moved out of a decision I believed belonged to both of us. Is the money safe? Yes. Is it accessible? Eventually. Eventually. When? After it clears compliance review. I watched her carefully. Her breathing was steady, too steady. What's the real reason? I asked. She looked away this time, toward the window. We need flexibility. For what? For change. The word hung in the air. Change. Not renovation, not business expansion. Change. You're not talking about investments. No. Silence. I felt my chest tighten. Are you leaving? She didn't answer immediately. That was answer enough. I haven't decided, she said finally. But you moved the money. Yes. Without telling me. Yes. The calmness of her admission unsettled me more than denial would have. You were going to tell me after it cleared, when it was irreversible. The honesty in that statement made my jaw tighten. You made a unilateral decision. I made a protective one. For who? For me. That was the first completely unfiltered sentence she had spoken. I stepped back. The kitchen felt smaller. When were you going to tell me? I asked again. After I had options. Options. The word echoed in my head long after she left the room. Not plans, not separation. Options. I checked my phone. A missed call from Colin and a new voicemail. Mr. Hale, there's one more thing regarding the transfer authorization. The digital certificate attached to the submission was updated at 2:13 a.m. It appears to have been modified from a secondary admin profile. Secondary admin profile. We only had one, unless someone created another. I stared at the timestamp. 2:13 a.m. Andrea had been asleep beside me at that time. At least, I thought she had. I walked slowly toward the hallway. The bedroom door was half closed. For the first time since the call, I didn't feel anger. I felt something colder. Because if she didn't submit it at 2:13 a.m., then someone else did. I didn't confront her immediately. I stood in the hallway, listening to the faint sound of water running in the bathroom. Andrea moved in steady rhythms. No panic, no urgency. If she had filed the transfer herself, she was composed. If she hadn't, then something else was happening. I walked back into the kitchen and replayed Colin's voicemail. Secondary admin profile. We had set up the joint account years ago. One primary login under my credentials, one secondary under Andrea's. There was no third user, at least not officially. I texted Colin, "Can you confirm how many admin profiles are currently active?" He responded within minutes. 3. 3. I felt the shift in my stomach again. When was the third created? I typed. 1:58 a.m. 14 minutes before the transfer authorization. I stared at the screen. Andrea couldn't have created it from the bedroom without me noticing. Our office was across the hall. The hallway floor creaked near the desk. Unless she used a remote login, or someone else did. I heard the bathroom door open. She walked into the kitchen in a soft gray sweater, hair damp. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm thinking." About? The secondary admin profile. That made her stop. What secondary admin profile? There are 3 on the account. She blinked once, slow. That's not possible. It is. It was created at 1:58 a.m. Her eyes shifted, not to the floor, not to the door, but slightly left, toward the hallway. "That's ridiculous," she said, You're spiraling. Spiraling. I noticed something in her tone. Not fear, not guilt. Deflection. Were you awake at 2 a.m.? I asked. No. Are you sure? She stared at me. What are you implying? I'm asking. She crossed her arms again. You're doing that thing, she said, building a case in your head. That was familiar territory. When I pushed too far, she reframed my questions as paranoia. But this wasn't emotional. This was procedural. Colin can see the device ID. He can trace it. Her jaw tightened slightly. Why would anyone else access our account? She asked. That was the right question. Why would they? Unless someone had access to one of our devices or passwords. Did you share login credentials with anyone? No. Not even your financial advisor? I don't have one. The answer came too quickly. Andrea had been talking about consulting a private wealth strategist for months. Who's Daniel Kessler? I asked. That hit. Her shoulders stiffened imperceptibly. Where did you hear that name? It's attached to the Cayman holding entity. She didn't respond immediately. The silence felt different this time. Less controlled, more measured. He's an advisor, she said finally. Informal. You said you didn't have one. I said I didn't have a contracted one. That was technically consistent, but not transparent. Did he create the admin profile? I asked. I don't know. You don't know? I gave him access to explore structuring options. There it was. Access, without telling me. To our joint account? I asked. Yes. The word dropped cleanly. My pulse didn't spike. It slowed. You gave a third-party admin-level access to our primary investment account. It was temporary. Without informing me, you would have said no. We were back there again. You would have said no. This wasn't about secrecy for pleasure. It was about bypassing friction. Does he still have access? I asked. I don't think so. You don't think? Her breathing shifted. Fine, she said. Yes, he probably does. I stepped back slightly. And you were going to tell me after the transfer cleared. Yes. The honesty was steady, almost clinical. You're planning something, I said. You're preparing. For separation? For independence. The difference between those two words mattered. Are you unhappy? I asked. She hesitated. That hesitation hurt more than anything. I don't know, she said quietly. That felt real, not strategic. I feel small here, she added. Small. I looked around the kitchen, the house I bought, the investments I managed, the structure I designed. Had she been living inside my architecture? And moving money makes you bigger? I asked gently. It gives me agency. Agency. The word reframed everything. This wasn't theft. It wasn't betrayal in the cinematic sense. It was positioning. But the third admin profile still mattered. You let someone else into our system. That's not agency. That's risk. She didn't argue. She just looked tired. I thought I was being smart, she said. Were you? I don't know anymore. That was the first moment she sounded unsure. I checked my phone again. Another message from Colin. New development. The third profile executed a secondary review request after the transfer. Looks like funds were flagged internally. Flagged? For what? I typed. Conflict of interest. The Cayman holding entity is partially owned by Kessler's firm. My chest tightened. Andrea watched my face carefully. What now? She asked. Daniel Kessler owns part of the holding account. She went still. That's not what he told me. Did you verify? I trusted him. The irony sat between us. You trusted him, I said quietly. and you didn't trust me. That was fair, and it hurt. The room felt different now, less adversarial, more fragile. We need to freeze the account, I said. She didn't argue. Okay. I called Colin. Freeze everything, I said. It's already in review, and Mr. Hale, there's one more detail. I closed my eyes briefly. What is it? The authorization IP address wasn't from your home network. I opened my eyes. Andrea was staring at me. Where was it? I asked. From a hotel in Miami. Andrea's face drained of color. I've never been to Miami. And I believed her, which meant the person with admin access.
Andrea sat down slowly. Not dramatically, not collapsing, just lowering herself into the kitchen chair like her legs needed support. "That's not possible," she said. I didn't answer right away. Colin's voice echoed in my head. Hotel in Miami. Not our home network, not Andrea's tablet. "You gave him admin access," I said evenly. "I gave him viewing rights," she replied. "That's not what the bank log shows." Her breathing changed, small, shallow pulls. "You think I'm lying," she said. "I think you didn't understand what you gave him." She looked at me, searching for accusation. There wasn't any, just analysis. "Did you ever sign a power of attorney document?" I asked. "No." "Digital consent?" "I signed something through DocuSign." "For what?" "Account structuring authorization." "Did you read it?" She hesitated. That was enough. "I skimmed it," she admitted. "How many pages?" "I don't remember." I did the math in my head. If Kessler's firm partially owned the Cayman holding account and he had admin-level access, then the transfer wasn't just strategic positioning, it was entanglement. "Call him," I said. She picked up her phone immediately. No delay. That mattered. She put it on speaker. It rang twice. "Daniel," she said when he answered, "we need to talk." His voice was smooth, measured. "Of course. Everything clearing on your end?" "No," I said, stepping closer. "It's not." Silence on the other end. "And you are?" he asked. "Her husband, joint account holder." Another pause. "I was under the impression Mrs. Hale had full discretionary authority," he said. "That's interesting," I replied calmly, "because the bank logs show the transfer was executed from Miami." A longer silence. "That would be our compliance team routing through a secure server," he said smoothly. "That server resolves to a hotel IP address," I said. Andrea's eyes stayed fixed on me. Daniel's voice shifted slightly. "Mr. Hale, offshore structuring sometimes involves multi-layer routing for privacy." "From who?" I asked. "That depends on the objective." Andrea swallowed. "Daniel," she said carefully, "does your firm own part of the Cayman entity?" Silence. Then, "Our firm maintains operational interest in certain vehicles to ensure liquidity." "That's not what I asked," she said. Her tone had changed, less dependent, more direct. "Yes," he said finally, "we hold minority interest." Andrea's shoulders tightened. "You didn't tell me that." "It's in the documentation." "Buried," she replied. He didn't deny it. "Mrs. Hale," he said, "this is standard in high-level wealth management." "We are not high-level wealth," I said evenly. "We are careful wealth." Another pause. "If you're uncomfortable," Daniel said, "we can unwind the position." "Unwind it now," I said. "It may take several days." "It's already under review," I replied. That stopped him. "I see," he said. Andrea ended the call without another word. The kitchen felt colder. "You believed him," I said gently. "I believed he saw potential in me," she replied. There it was. Not greed, recognition. He talked to me like I had vision, like I wasn't just managing your portfolio. The statement stung. Is that how you feel? I asked. Sometimes. The honesty wasn't defensive. It was tired. I sat across from her. You should have told me. I know. Not because I would have stopped you. You would have. Maybe, I admitted, but at least it would have been a joint decision. She nodded slowly. I didn't want you analyzing it to death. I didn't want a third party analyzing our marriage. That landed. Her eyes shifted. Marriage? She asked. You said you wanted options. She looked down. I felt trapped. In what? In the structure, the predictability, the fact that every major decision runs through you. That wasn't entirely fair, but it wasn't entirely wrong. I thought giving myself financial mobility would make me feel stronger. Does it? She shook her head. No. Silence filled the room again, but this time it wasn't adversarial. It was reflective. You weren't planning to disappear. No. You weren't planning to hide assets. No. You were planning to create leverage. She didn't answer verbally, but her eyes did. Yes. The difference mattered. I checked my phone. Colin had sent another message. Compliance flagged secondary login as external commercial entity. We recommend revoking all third-party access immediately. I showed her the screen. She nodded. Do it. I called Colin and authorized the revocation. Within minutes, confirmation came through. Third admin profile removed. Transfer frozen. Cayman entity under compliance investigation. When I ended the call, the house felt quieter. Not because the crisis was over, but because the noise had shifted. You trusted him because he validated you, I said gently. Yes, and you bypassed me because you thought I would invalidate you. She looked at me. That's not entirely wrong. I sat with that. It would have been easy to feel betrayed, to escalate, to accuse, but something inside me resisted that path. This wasn't infidelity, it wasn't theft, it was misalignment. You don't need offshore accounts to have agency, I said quietly. Then what do I need? The question was sincere, not rhetorical, and I didn't have an immediate answer, which meant this wasn't just about banking. It was about balance, and the real conflict hadn't even started yet.
The bank sent formal confirmation the next morning. Transfer suspended, external access revoked, compliance review initiated. Technically, the crisis was contained. Emotionally, it wasn't. Andrea moved through the house quietly that week, not withdrawn, not apologetic either, just measured. I worked from the home office, but I noticed something I hadn't before. She no longer asked about market movements, or portfolio strategy, or quarterly projections. For years, she had shown interest, engaged, curious. Now there was distance, not anger, absence. One evening, I found her in the guest bedroom, laptop open, resume on the screen. "You're applying somewhere?" I asked. She didn't close it. "Yes." "For what?" "Strategic operations role, mid-sized consulting firm." I sat on the edge of the bed. "You've been out of the workforce for 8 years." "I know." "That's not criticism." "I know." Silence settled between us again. Not tense this time, thoughtful. "I don't want offshore leverage," she said quietly. "I want earned leverage." That was different. "And you think a job fixes that?" I asked. "No, but it changes my internal math." Internal math. I understood that. When I built my career, it wasn't about money first. It was about capability, being able to move, being able to choose. "You thought the money gave you freedom," I said. "Yes." "And now?" "I think it was a shortcut." That admission felt heavier than any accusation earlier in the week.
"You didn't ask for a job before," I said. "You didn't encourage one." That stung, because it was partially true. I had grown comfortable in our structure. My income, her management of the household, clean lines, efficient, predictable. But predictable doesn't always mean balanced. "Did you feel dependent?" I asked. "Yes." The word wasn't sharp, it was soft, and that made it harder. "I never intended that." "I know." "Then why didn't you say it?" "I did." I searched my memory. Small comments over the years. I might look into something. Maybe I should consult part-time. I had responded with logic. "Not necessary. We're fine." Fine had been the problem. I dismissed it, I admitted. Yes. No anger, just confirmation. The offshore transfer wasn't about secrecy. It was about acceleration. She wanted to move faster than our structure allowed, and instead of negotiating, she bypassed. "I'm not leaving," she said suddenly. I looked up. "I don't want separation. I wanted autonomy." There was clarity in her voice now. Not defensive, not uncertain, just honest. "And you think I'm the obstacle," I said. "I think the system we built made me smaller than I am." That was difficult to hear, but not false. I leaned back against the wall. "What would balance look like?" I asked. "Shared financial dashboards, not just updates from you." "Okay." "My own income stream." "Okay." "Joint decisions on capital movement." That should have already been true. She nodded slightly. "And no third-party access without both signatures." Agreed. The conversation felt strangely calm, as if the crisis had burned off the excess emotion. "What about Daniel?" I asked. She shook her head. "He saw a crack and widened it." "You trusted him?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because he talked to me like I was decisive." I let that settle. "And I don't?" I asked. "You do, but you also explain why I might be wrong." I almost smiled. "That's my profession." "I know." Silence. Then she added, "Sometimes I don't want a defense attorney. I want a partner." That landed, harder than the bank call, because it wasn't about money, it was about posture. Had I been leading too often, correcting too quickly? I thought I was protecting us. Maybe I was over-optimizing. "I don't want to control you," I said quietly. "I don't want to be controlled." There it was, simple, direct, no offshore accounts involved. Then we redesign, together. She studied my face carefully. "Are you not angry?" she asked. "I was," I admitted, "but not about the money." "About what?" "About being excluded." She nodded slowly. "I understand that." "Do you?" "Yes." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was alignment forming. "We should still review the account activity together," I said. "We will." "And if there's any loss, I'll absorb it." "No." She frowned. "It was my decision. It was our account." She held my gaze. "That's the first time you've said ours without clarifying percentages." That hit, because she was right. I stood. "Send the resume," I said. She looked surprised. "Really?" "Yes." "Even if it changes things?" "Especially if it changes things." Her shoulders relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. The money wasn't gone. The account wasn't emptied. But something else had shifted. Not dramatic, not explosive, just structural. And I realized something uncomfortable. If the bank manager hadn't called me, I might never have seen the imbalance. Not the financial one, the relational one. The real transfer wasn't $280,000. It was power. And we were finally talking about it.
The compliance review cleared the funds. No penalties, no loss, just a formal note recommending tighter authorization controls. The money returned to the joint account 3 days later. The numbers were intact, but the structure wasn't the same. Andrea accepted the consulting role 2 weeks after sending her resume. Not executive, not flashy, a mid-level strategic operations position at a regional firm. Modest salary, real responsibility. The first morning she left for work, the house felt unfamiliar. Not empty, different. She wasn't moving away from me. She was moving toward something. That distinction mattered. We redesigned the financial dashboard together that weekend. Shared access, 2-factor authentication for both of us, no third-party advisors without dual approval, no unilateral transfers beyond a set threshold. It felt procedural, but it wasn't cold. It was intentional. We sat at the dining table reviewing the settings, not as opponents, but as architects. "I don't want to hide money from you," she said quietly. "I don't want to be the gatekeeper," I replied. That was the quiet truth. I had been comfortable being the gatekeeper, the one who understood every inflow and outflow. It made me feel competent, in control. But control isn't the same as partnership. 3 weeks into her job, she came home late one evening, tired, but energized. "I led the restructuring call," she said. "You did?" "Yes." "And?" "They listened." The smile on her face wasn't about salary, it was about weight. She wasn't trying to move $280,000 anymore. She was moving influence, earned, built, not borrowed. We still argued sometimes, about logistics, about time, about whose turn it was to handle something. But the tone had shifted. Less defense, more negotiation. One night, months later, she asked something unexpected. "Why didn't you explode when the bank called?" I thought about that carefully. "I almost did," I admitted. "But you didn't." "No." "Why?" Because the moment Colin said offshore account, my first reaction wasn't betrayal, it was confusion. And confusion, if you let it breathe, turns into inquiry. "I realized something," I said. "What?" "If you wanted to hurt me, you would have done it cleaner." She laughed softly. "That's not comforting. It's honest. You weren't trying to destroy, you were trying to reposition, and those are very different motives." "I thought I was reclaiming something," she said quietly. "You were, but not the right way." "No." She looked at me carefully. "Were you scared?" "Yes." "Of losing the money?" "No." "Of what then?" I held her gaze. "Of realizing you didn't need me." She went still. "That's not what I wanted," she said. "I know." "And you? Were you scared?" she asked. "Yes." "Of what?" "That I had built a life where you felt smaller." The room was quiet. No defensiveness, no ego. Just 2 admissions that probably should have happened years earlier. The offshore account never became active. Daniel Kessler sent one final email claiming misunderstanding. We didn't respond. The bank flagged his firm internally. It ended without spectacle. No lawsuit, no public scandal, just containment and correction. 6 months after the transfer attempt, we reviewed the investment account again, together. Same balance, different posture. She pointed to one allocation. "I think we should increase exposure here." I started to explain the risk model, then stopped. "Why?" I asked instead. She outlined her reasoning clearly, not emotionally, strategically. I listened, not to counter, to evaluate. We adjusted the allocation, jointly. The bank manager never called again, but sometimes I think about that moment in the car. Offshore account. Authorized by you? That call wasn't the betrayal, it was the interruption. The interruption of a system that looked stable, but wasn't balanced.
Money can expose what conversation hides, and in our case, it forced clarity. Not about wealth, about weight. Neither of us wanted to carry it all alone. Neither of us wanted to feel lighter than we were. The funds stayed where they belonged. The control became shared. And the real transfer, the shift in power, happened in the open. Quietly. Deliberately. Not because we won, but because we recalibrated. And that was worth far more than $280,000.